Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Stitching Owl Flosstube number 7 on October 29th, 2023. This is a channel that is about my love for cross stitch and my desire to chat with other people that are like-minded about the craft that provides me with much serenity. Right at the moment, the world has many tragedies occurring. There are wars where people that are innocent are losing their lives, not knowing where family members are, having young men forced to serve in war situations. I can't imagine being in that situation. There are shootings and violence going on. There is poverty and there's homelessness. And all of these things are happening in the world around me. And yet I am fortunate enough to be here with you and fortunate enough to have the funds to seek solace in stitching. So today I'm saying I'm very grateful that I was born in North America, specifically in Canada, where although we had terrible forest fires this past year, they didn't reach me. Will I have some ice storms to deal with in the winter? Oh yeah, there'll be snow, there'll be ice. And sometimes it is a huge problem. But there's so many blessings that I have that I need to be grateful for. And you are part of that blessing. Thank you to each of you who has subscribed to me and reached out to say a cheery hello. And thank you to you if you just like to watch and see what I have to say and stitch to my voice. Now, one of the other things I'm thankful for is friends who let me know how to improve things. Sheilia of the Sunshine Stitchers was chatting with me at our recent Jacobpalooza experience and explaining how iMovies can be used to help with the editing of our Flosstube videos. I am quite the dinosaur and not very knowledgeable about how to use this wonderful technology well, but I am very thankful that my youngest child is at the ready to see if there's something that we can do with editing today. So if you see any subtitles, that's our first step into learning how to edit, and I'm very thankful for my child. At this point, I want to reach out to say congratulations to Jessica, the Sweetwater Stitcher, for reaching 10,000 subscribers. That's an amazing amount of subscribers. She has a special video that will be uploaded at some point in the next week that is definitely worth a watch. She has promised that she's going to be celebrating with all of us her 10,000. I want to say that my first Send a Smile is on the way over the ocean to the UK. It's the first one I have sent outside of North America, and is going to Kat from Catkin and Lillie. Kat is posting videos on a regular basis, and in the last few weeks, I'd say maybe about 3 weeks ago, she did a tour of her home that was just totally inspirational. Kat is not just a floss tuber, she stitches and she designs. So I know that I'm going to be checking out her, I'm going to be checking out her Etsy shop and doing a purchase. The reason I just paused is it's the first time my pup has actually decided to come down while I'm videoing. I don't know whether she'll actually come to this side again so that I can show you. Hey, sweetie. Nope. She is camera shy. Lola keeps me company when I stitch. She loves it when I just sit still for a few hours all in a row. but she doesn't tend to want to be on camera. As a matter of fact, we have a really hard time getting a good photo of her at all. So just a few more things that I want to chatter about for a while. Pam of Just Keep Stitchin' has announced her 24 starts for 2024. A number of Flosstubers are jumping on that bandwagon of doing 24 starts in 2024. I believe Alicia, the Fanciful Flamingo, is already sharing some of the pieces that she is hoping to be stitching. Pam actually had an entire video devoted to the 24 that she is going to start and listed them all right off the bat, and has invited her daughter Steph to feel free to kit any of these up for her for Christmas. No, she's not going to want to come up. So while I was watching her video, I was thinking, so how can the Stitching Owl embrace this idea in her own way? So what I've decided to do is, yes, more ornaments. You knew that was coming. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find 24 different designers to celebrate and make ornaments from the 24 different designers. I won't necessarily stop at one ornament per designer. There could be multiple, and I might even go past 24, but there will be at least 24 designers next year. Some of them, yes, will be ones you've seen this year, but most of them will be new to the Stitching Owl. So I'm quite excited about that, and I'm already scouring the internet and looking through my store of patterns to see which designers I have not stitched before. I realized that one of the easiest ways to do things is just to pick up a Just Cross Stitch Halloween or Christmas magazine and just start at the beginning and keep going, because they will have over 24 different designers in each of their books. I will probably use some of them, but that's not where the main part of my projects are going to be. Penny's daughter Cher's, Michelle, has had a special birthday, number 50, and she plans to start 50 projects between her birthday of 2023 and her birthday of 2024. If everything goes exactly to plan, her 50th project will be started on her next birthday. Well, I think I'm going to have to join along in the challenge of 50. After all, I can double dip, and I can use my 24 starts in 24 that I'm going along with Pam and Alicia, and use those as the first 24 of my 50. So I'm going to be happy to do that. And the hashtag that she has already started is Celebrate 50 Start Along, with 50 being 50, the number not written out. Fingers are crossed. That just ran across the screen. We are hoping. Now, as it happens, Somi Sarah from across the waters is also experiencing that birthday, and she is also aiming to start 50 pieces in 2024. So I actually think I get to triple dip and have fun supporting all of these different projects. I think that they'll probably be calling them start-alongs. The goal here is not for them to finish all of these. It truly is for them to have the joy of starting and to go forward from there. Some will get further than others. Hi, Lola. No. If I lean over to pick her up, she does a backward step. If you hear any moaning, it's because she's wondering why I'm talking to my iPad and not paying more attention to her. There are other people in the house though, so we'll see if she can find them. Okay. Are we talking about SAL's start-alongs? Well, Colette, the highway stitcher, has a new project since her last retreat. It is the Jardin Privé birdhouses. Now, I was having a hard time getting a hard copy of this. They were on back order, so it must be a very popular start-along. So I went on the Jardin Privé website and ordered mine in a PDF file, and that's why my printer has some obscure little stripes. Those are not part of the pattern. So what you notice with this is that there are 12 birdhouses, one for each month of the year. And in that way, Colette has divided up this pattern so that everybody can take one full year to complete this. Now, I am the Stitching Owl. So how am I going to approach this? You guessed it. I'm going to be doing ornaments because each of those birdhouses can be a small ornament. And the way I am making it a small ornament, let me show you my start because I have started along. October will not be done in the month of October. But what I found was that while I was at Jacobpalooza, there was a lot of lovely, lovely fabric available for me to purchase. And I found a piece of 28 count even weave called panettone, which is an absolutely wonderful piece of material. And when I looked at it and felt the weight of this piece of fabric, I thought, oh my goodness, I think this could be the first time that I try 1/1 on 28 count. So at this point, I have the pumpkin at the base of the fence post. I have my woodpecker in, and there will be a birdhouse at the top and perhaps a butterfly. So it's very possible to look at almost any pattern and say, well, how small do I need to go to make that into an ornament? So I'm sure that this isn't completely the way Colette was thinking she would do it, but she's already written to me that 28 sounds good, and she's going to be doing hers on a small count as well. I think she's doing 25. If you are looking this pattern up, it's Au Fil de Nichois. And on Jardin Privé, if you tap the flag, I think it looks like the British flag, all of the French goes to English. When you get the pattern, you're fine if you can't read French. It all works out because when I pressed the button for it to be English, my pattern came in English too. So that is my start along to go with Colette, the highway stitcher. Now, that doesn't mean that I've given up on the other start along that I was planning to do, and I did think it was going to be my first start along, but it's going to be number 2. Just making sure I put everything out of the way. So I'm trying to get my hands on 1 Dozen Quakers by Rosewood Manor. The Sunshine Stitchers are looking at that saying, well, if there's a dozen Quakers, that's 1 per month. But let's do this, that we start at the beginning of December in 2023 and have a plan for a baker's dozen of months so that if somewhere along the way you end up behind or just need a little bit of extra time for one of the Quakers that's a little bit bigger, they have built in that extra month to make it possible for you to still be finished by the end of December 2024. So I'm going to go on to the Rosewood Manor website to order that. Because right at the moment, I have not found another way to get my hands on that particular pattern. But that's okay. When we order from the original designer, they are getting more of the benefit from our purchase. So I'm happy to do that. Okay, now let's see what else I'm doing. In the last 2 weeks, well, so it really has been 2 weeks. I'm going to say this video is early. I record on the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month on a regular basis. But the 1st of the month this week landed on one of my teaching days that is already jam-packed. My apologies for the moaning puppy. So I either was going to be recording early or late, and I was so excited about doing this video that I decided for early. And by doing it a bit early, if it takes us a little longer to do the editing, we'll still have it done by the 1st. So I do have a fully finish, and no surprise, it is Oh Canada. So this is a pattern by Hands On Design, Kathy Haberman. I love the fact that she celebrates both the United States and Canada in her designs. And in some of them, she actually has 2 options within the same pattern. Absolutely wonderful of her. So this has been done on 20 count charcoal Aida and stitched with 1 thread of DMC. They are the called for threads. Now, one of the things that I have done to ensure that this charcoal came through as dark as I could, when I made this particular ornament, the batting behind this front is black batting. And in that way, it helped the saturation of the black stay true. When I put it on a piece of white, it didn't have the same impact. I can get black batting at my quilt stores, and as luck would have it, I had used black batting for a quilt last year and had some left over. So I'm okay for a few of these darker backgrounds. Okay, that was my only fully finish. But you're going to find out it's for a reason that I only have one. I could have done more, but I have been asked a number of times to explain my process for making the ornaments. And so I have left them in various stages of ornamenting so that I can explain that later on in this video. Let's go to finishes first. Well, yes, I actually did it. This is Country Cottage Samplings, A Year in the Woods, #1, The Fox. I was hoping to be able to do it in 3 weeks, but it took 4 weeks and 2 days. I am really, really pleased with how this turned out. When I show you the swans and the fox were both done on 20 count Aida, cornflower fiber on a whim. Now, I'm not aiming to fully finish this, and I know that's unusual for me yet. And that reason is I want to actually complete, I think I'm going to do 10 of these, hopefully over the next year, so that they are part of my 50 starts. And then I have a special vision of how I'm going to finish them all into a single project. And I know people are going, but you didn't really do them on the same fabric. I will be careful to do them all on 20 count Aida from Fiber on a Whim so that the texturing makes sense and the size is all relative. But probably a year from now, you'll see where I went with that project. But I think the finishing is going to take me some time, so it might be 2026 before it truly is finished. We'll have to see. One of my other finishes was the unwelcome sign. This is a cross stitch ornament from Just Cross Stitch Halloween. It's on page 8. Now you'll find that I didn't put all of the words above and below. If we look really close, you can see "Turn Back" written in green on the gate. This has been stitched on 32 count Lugana. It has been stitched in sulky thread, 1 thread over 2. And again, I'm just going to show you the coverage is excellent with 1 thread over 2 in sulky. My other finishes are also from the Halloween, so this is the one, 2023. My other finishes are also from this, but I'm going to bring them to your attention later when I get into more details about my ornaments. Okay, so now that brings us to the works in progress, which we often call whips. I can't quite get that sound that we hear from Jane and Julie, but hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. So my first whip today is actually going into an area that you haven't seen the Stitching Owl do before, but this is not my first Mill Hill kit. Hey you, would you like to come up? No. So you can see the word joy there. These Mill Hill kits come with all the floss, the needles, the beads, and indeed this special charm, the heart, is part of the kit. This is from the Winter Holidays collection, and it is called Santa Paws because it's a paw print. Right at the moment, I started this on Wednesday, and I have all of the stitching done. This is DMC, and they have you do 3 strands because this is 14 count not parchment paper. Oh, good grief. Now I can't remember what the name of this paper is, but I'm sure you know. So I have the beads to go in around each of the words, a little bit of the paw, and then on top of this heart, I will be putting the charm. So the next time we're together, you will see that one fully finished. Now, another one of my projects is Jacob de Graaf Modern Folk Embroidery. This is called Under the Stars, and it is the project that I started for Jacob Palooza. Now, I need to be honest. I started it the night before because I need to be able to concentrate when I do my first stitches or things go wildly wrong and the frog must come out. So I had put in about 20 stitches the night before and then continued on. Now, the last time we were together, we saw that I had started in the center top on a beautiful piece of material. This is called Blue Moon Lugana. It's a 32 count. Whoop, now you can tell that she's actually at the window. I believe it's by a company called Lost Notes, but where I purchased it didn't put that information on the card they attached to my piece of material. So the last time we were together, I had most of this center piece done. So what I'm doing now, I didn't want to put it away. I had one day where I didn't do it, and then I was like, oh, no, I want to keep working on that. Like, I understand the allure of Jacob's patterns. They are just so much fun to stitch. So I was able to finish this and then add this medallion in by doing 2 strands a day. Now, I will admit that today it was 2.5 because I was almost finished this flower, and I was like, for 2 more petals, I'm going to do a half more strand in order to finish that off to show to you. So, as I mentioned the last time, I fell in love with this piece of material, and I knew that the sulky thread, this is a variegated gold, yellowy gold thread, so it's a 12 weight with the number 713 on it. There's also the number 4058 on it. It's really, really lovely, and I knew I wanted to do it, even though this piece of material was the last piece that was in Stitch It Central and wasn't as large as it should be. If it had been 36, it would have worked. This is 32. So I now need to use the counting pins that I got from my friends at Jacobpalooza and figure out whether I've got the full width, I believe I do, to go all the way across. And then I will have to plan how I do the length of this pattern in order for it to fit on this particular piece. I don't have to have wide margins at the side because I'm going to hang this as a tapestry. You can actually see I don't have that wide at all here, but that's because I just need to be able to fold it under like this. And then I know how to put a hanging sleeve on from my quilting experience. So I have continued to really, really enjoy working on Jacob's work. And I can honestly say the journey with sulky thread it's so easy. The thread doesn't knot on me. It goes through easily and it's got good coverage. Okay, so that was my Mill Hill, my modern folk embroidery. I've already talked to you about my birdhouse sew-along, so that means it's time to talk to you about what has excited me the most. Oh my goodness, my BAP, my big art project, or big awesome project. Some people are using a different word for that A. So you know that I have chosen a Sheilia Creations design, and it is stained glass owl. This is available on Etsy. I have to say, oh my, I chose the right pattern. It is so exciting when you can say that because you're just in love with doing this every day. So I am the Stitching Owl because I stitch a lot at night. So every night I get between 2 and 3 hours of stitching on this. My goal is to do at least 200 stitches. I initially started with 100 stitches a day as my goal, but I'm finding with 2 hours I can usually get 200 stitches in, depending on whether I am doing a confetti moment or more of a block moment. So I have found ways to actually do a little bit of both each night in order to make this work out for me. Now I'm going to show you a different chart. This chart shows how the pages line up that you receive in your PDF file from Sheilia Creations. Now at this point, I have finished these 2 pages. I know, 2-page finishes, but they are very short pages because there's only 1 column of 10 on each of those pages. But out of here, I have actually stitched on 8 of these pages because I've already started on this page. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I'm doing this background, and I have to say, I'm so pleased that the background that is the start of this pattern is not just, let's do all black or 10 different colors that add to black. It's got a creative design that makes these particular stained glass show up. So now let's just have a peek at where I was the last time we were together. Hang on. Wow, that's not doing very well. Okay. That color was not good. Now this time, so right here, I am over halfway down. And here, this thread is going to be the halfway point going across. So you can see that I put in the black here, and then all along the side of this is where the confetti is, because that's how they get this wonderful coloring. So I do an area of black and get a good 100 stitches in, and then I do the confetti. But isn't the mauve color down here just coming out so beautifully? It actually shows a brighter mauve in person. So I'm trying to figure out whether I'll actually get to having at least one stitch of the owl in before we meet again. And I'm not sure, because when we count off to the 15th of November, it is again in the middle of the week when I am teaching on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I might actually have to do my videoing ahead again. So not sure whether I will get there, but at this point, I have 136 boxes completed that are 100 stitches each. And that means that in 6 weeks period, I started this on September 16. I have finished 13,600 stitches. I'm just so excited. It's like, I can't, wow. I am beyond words excited, and I'm so pleased to actually get it out each time and say, oh, I wonder where I'm going to go today. So I hope you're enjoying my journey with this. I will be posting my picture for Instagram. I am the Stitching Owl there. I will be posting it on the 15th. So I will keep my post for Instagram with the pictures on the 1st and the 15th, even if I feel the need to record on a different date. Now, those are my whips. Yes, okay. So now we are going to my ornament making. So, first of all, we need to talk about supplies. The first thing that people ask me is, well, what's on the inside of your ornaments? This is comic book board. It is something that you can get relatively cheaply, 25, 50 pieces of comic book board from Amazon. They come to your door, and they are considered safe against material. A lot of people that are quilters wrap their cotton around this to keep it safe. You can see it is actually quite a heavy cardstock. So I feel completely safe using this. Now, in order for me to get the structure that I do on mine, what I do is I use double-sided tape, and I tape 2 sheets together. And that's the backing for the front of the ornament, while the backing for the back of the ornament is a single thickness. So this is where I start. So let's go step by step through this. I am not going to be doing this as a you watch me sew video. If you feel that you really want me to do that, please put a comment below and I will work on that and see if my youngest and I can come up with a way for that to work out. So of course, step number 1 is to choose a pattern and stitch it. And now I'm like, where did I go? Okay. So what I decided to do for the purpose of this demonstration were these 3 pumpkins. Yes, it's from the Halloween cross stitch. And these are by Maddie Miller. The designs, she intended them to be done on 14 count Aida and then to use a sticky board circle from Fat Quarter Shop and one of their tart tins. Karen always does things a little bit different. You'll find that is just how I do things. Okay, so there we go. That is what we are doing. So what I've done is I've got those in different levels of doneness so that I can show you what's going on. So this is the circle. It is 2 pieces of comic book board put together with double-sided tape. I do use Scotch brand from Michaels. I have personally found that those from Dollarama don't work nearly as well, but if they work for you, go for it. Some people say, well, can I just use glue? And I'm just going to share with you that I use glue as rarely as possible so that I don't get dimples because I've put in too much. I will use glue to put magnets on if I'm going to magnet something, but that's about the only reason I use glue. Yes. So there is what we've got. Now, the first thing you want to do is to trim your piece. So this is one of them. And what I've done is I've trimmed it so that it's an inch or so away from the actual stitching. Now, just so you know, this is Tangerine Lugana 32 count, and yes, that is sulky thread. So I've done that in a circle, and when I trim that, the next thing that I do, and I'm trying to see whether I can show this to you, I use a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine to go all the way around the outside. When you are lacing projects using material that are woven material, if you pull your lacing tight and you haven't taken precautions with your edge, you can actually start unraveling your material. So that's why I do that. Now, you can also use a product called Fray Check that you can purchase in Canada at Fabricland and probably in Joann's in the States. It's not hard to find. I didn't check to see if you could get it on Amazon, but seriously, you can get almost anything on Amazon, so of course you can. So I just take the precaution to make sure that my edging will not come undone. Now, when I do a square, today, most of the tutorial today is going to be with regards to my circles. But if I show you this, this is a square. You can see that I've zigzagged, but on the edges, the very corners, I have cut off the corner. Not close to, like I didn't go far in, but I did cut off a little bit of the corner so that when I wrap this around the comic book board, I don't have quite as much thickness at the corners and I can make them neater. The next time we're together, I will show you the secret to my corners, because some people are going, how do you do that? It's not that hard. It works out. But I wanted to show you that stage on this one. Now let's go back to our circles. So I've zigzagged the edge. I've stopped the fraying. Now I've used my comic book board, and essentially what I do, I have templates. And again, you can get these in art supply shops. You can probably get them from Amazon again, or Michael's. So I have a whole series of different sized circles, everything from something very, very small to almost the size of a dinner plate. So what I do is I find which circle makes the most sense, and I go, okay, that's it. That's where I want this to come out. So there's a little bit of pumpkin-y space around the edge, but not too much. I trace around this right onto the comic book board, and then I just cut it out. And I do have some people who at this point say, why not use sticky board? And I have tried sticky board, and if it's working for you, do what works for you. For me, I don't find it a great advantage in my finishing, and I don't find it an advantage to my pocketbook either. It's more expensive than comic book board. So win-win if I just use comic book board. So one of the things that I like is a bit of poof in my ornaments. I talked to you about the fact that behind here is black batting from the edge of a quilt. So what I do is I put this on a slab of batting and I cut around it. But I don't want just one layer, I want two. I don't find one layer of today's batting provides very much poof, and some people do more than two. When I'm doing a drum, I actually put 6 layers of this, but each time I have another layer, the next circle is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So they just keep getting smaller and smaller. Now, however, one of the important things that I discovered, ask me how I know, because I did it the other way, is that when you put your batting against your piece of finished stitch work, always put the big one against this. If you do it this way and you've got a series of smaller circles, you actually get the lines from each circle showing through your fabric as part of the contouring. Whereas if you do the large one on top, you get the poof without those circles. Yes, that's one of my secrets. Okay, so that's my poof. So I said if you want to have more poof, you can have more circles. I'm going to suggest to you that if you want more poof, when you cut around your piece of material, give yourself a larger margin because more poof takes more space. So you don't want to have so little at the edge that you actually can't use all of the batting you had planned. And I'm just using my notes to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, so then we get to the lacing. So the first thing that you do is you figure out, what am I going to lace with? I have laced with a number of products, and I can say that upholstery thread is strong enough to lace with. Regular thread is not. But I don't want to say by accident. My mother didn't know what to do with all the leftover crochet cotton of her mother's. My grandmother made many, many doilies. You will be seeing them at some point as I try and figure out how to use them on project bags. I discovered that crochet cotton is really strong. So I have used all of the stuff that was left over from my grandmother, and it didn't matter that it was 40 years old, it has held it strong. You can buy just 12 weight crochet cotton in many different colors at Michael's, probably at Joann's. In many ways, it doesn't matter what color you lace with because it will be hidden. I just pick a neutral, but that's another thing that needs to be in order for you to do it. Now, the next thing that just sort of surprises people is we based around the front. Yes, you actually sew the top side. The top side. So I have basted around, so you can see my big knot. This piece of string, what I do, it's double. You can see that it's double. I pull out a piece of string that's the length of my arms, and then I double that. You do not have to use it that long, but I find that if I go for that long, then I don't have to start knotting more pieces of string into this whole thing. If I can do it with one long piece of crochet cotton, I will. So I went all of the way around, and you can see I went in fairly close to where I have stopped the fabric from fraying. So now on the back of this, I'm going to put my batting with the big side against, so the big side is against the back side of this, and then I'm going to take my circle, and then the next thing that you want to do is to find where that was. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this up. So I'm just pulling this until it's quite tight, and then I pull the little end. Now, we now have the opportunity to look at the front and say, did it turn out centered, or do I need to shift this around before I go any farther? And so when I look at this one, wow, it doesn't usually turn out that good the first time. I usually have to squiggle it around, but that actually turned out quite nicely. So you can see on the back right now, I've got this end that was the original end, and I've got this long, long piece of crochet cotton. Well, I am now going to put a knot in, and I'm going to pull it fairly tightly so that that basting is not going to come out. So I'm just going to make a good knot. And literally, there's my knot. I'm not worried about cutting this off because it's just sitting on the inside. I don't want to accidentally cut it so close to the knot that the knot comes undone, and then I have compromised my ornament. Now comes the lacing. So in here, this does look quite lovely, but we can get this even a little bit tighter. You can see that by pulling it, you've got all of these bubbles here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across, and I'm going to go into one of the bubbles. And this is why we use a very long, and then I'm going to pull. It pulls it tighter. And now I'm going to go across to the other side, and I'm going to go through in the same way. And so you zigzag your way all around this to end up with this on your back. This is a different face. And then you knot that off really tightly, and you don't need to worry about the fact that it isn't super neat. No one's going to see this, I promise. Before we go any further, you need to put on your hanger. So I like to use beads, but that isn't the only product that you can use. Right here, I've got purple metallic and then black beads because I thought that looked really good. I'm finding it interesting that these blacks actually don't turn out very black. They look like I've got red lines. Fascinating. But you can use twine, you can use yarn. One of the things that I did originally when I started into this is I would take the colors of, like for instance in here, there's 3 colors. There's black, there's green, and there's gray. And I would take a strand of each of those and I would create a braid in those 3, and then I would sew it on as my handle. And I found that was a way that I could cohesively pull all the colors together. I just happen to really love beading, so I'm using beading, and I've got quite a few beads here that are waiting to be used. So all I did is I had a big knot, and right now I'm just using regular thread. I am using a beading needle that I've purchased at my L&S, because a regular needle will not go through these. Like you can see that those little black beads are very, very tiny. So I put a knot in the end and I do a double knot, and then I come up underneath, actually it's this one, I came underneath this bubble, and then I just did an extra little tuck. It's going to be hidden to make sure that it's in place. Again, this is a woven, and if you're not careful, the knots can actually loosely come through. So you want to always take a second stitch. So after I did that, I did all my beading, determined how many beads I wanted on it. And what I did was I used this and I said, I'm going to put the beginning right above this part of the eye and the end right above this part of the eye, so that it actually hangs logically when I decide to put it up. There's my puppy again. It's actually amazed me that we haven't had those sound effects in the past videos. She's 10 pounds, but she guards the house. If anybody walks past, she's going to tell them, don't come any closer. So now you have your handle in place, and this is all done. So next you have to create your back. And it's the same process, only I only use 1 circle of comic book board, and I don't put any poof in because nobody really is going to look at the back. And I might as well save my batting for the front. So I personally use cotton. This was left over from an apron that I made. So it was perfect. It was orange. And yes, I did the same process. I laced my back too. I did not just glue it on. Now, I'll be the first to say that some people at this point will take this and then they will get a piece of felt and they will simply put the felt on the back and they will either sew it on or glue it on. It's just not what I do. But it is definitely an option. No problem if you decide that's the way you want to go. So I've got my back, which is going to go on like this. And I've got my front. And because they're both the same size, you don't see the back when you're looking at the front. Okay. So now what Karen does is I get pearl cotton. Now this is number 5 weight pearl cotton. You find it at Michael's and at your local L&S. This is used in Hardanger. And the numbers on it, like if you look at this and go, oh, I recognize that color. Yes, you do. It's number 415, the same as the 415 regular DMC. So there's many, many colors of this available. You don't have to just sort of go, well, I've got to use white or black or red. No, no, no. There is so many colors available. So that's one of the reasons I like this. Plus, it works well with what I call the blanket stitch. Well, it's not what I called it. It started being the blanket stitch hundreds of years ago. So what I've done here, whoops, that's an extra back. I took a long piece of pearl cotton and I doubled it. Now when you're doing this, you can see I've started the blanket stitch. In the best world, you don't have to run out partway through and figure out a way to bury that knot, start another knot, because sometimes, like if you get all the way to here and it's mostly closed, it's really hard to actually find that way to bury the knot. It's not impossible, I have done it, but it takes time. So the magic formula for me is I lay this on my lap and then I take this piece of string and I go around 2 times because it takes double the perimeter of what you are doing in order not to run out of thread. And I would rather add 2 inches and waste 2 inches than run out, because it truly is that hard to bury those knots. Again, not impossible, it can be done. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm stitching the front to the back. So again, you're seeing Karen does not use any glue. So right here, all I'm doing is I'm putting the needle into the front and then through, there we go, it's the angle, a little bit of the back. I pull it through and you can see this is coming up so that I've got this looped around it. And there I have another stitch. So what, in an ideal world, you want your stitches to be quite even. Many people match their blanket stitch to their piece so that you really don't see it. I tend many times to use a contrasting, as you can see with this black. The reason it turned out to be black, not orange, is I didn't have orange and I wanted to do the video today. I didn't have the car to go shopping for the orange pearl cotton. So what some people do is, hang on, I'm going to find black. So this is my left hand, my non-dominant hand, the hand that I'm holding this with. What people will do is they will mark in ink. Oh, look at that. It doesn't want to mark in ink. Well, how did I find the one that isn't going to work? They will mark in ink two lines. The red looks like I've hurt myself. I have not. And then they know that when they put their thread in the next time to go here, and they just keep moving it along so that they know this is where the thread is they just did, and this is where they're going to put their next thread. And in that way, they have even spacing all the way around without getting out a ruler. And it truly doesn't matter if it's 3/8 or 4/8 or 2/8. It's just going to be the same distance. Isn't that neat? So what happens is you go all the way around, and then at the bottom you bury it. Now, I always begin and end at the bottom so that if the knot is slightly bulky, I don't have that sitting right at the top where everybody tends to look. So I'm always going to have that at the bottom, but there you go. That is my secret to how I do my ornaments. Is there anything else? Okay, I think I've gotten through all of my notes for the day. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me for my longest video so far. I hope that you were stitching while I was chatting and that you might have some ideas for possibly finishing some of your smalls in a new way. So remember, keep your stitching handy, make something, and make yourself happy.